Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the launching of the second volume of the ebook, Salamat Pnoy. To open our program, let us join Father Jet Villarin, a schoolmate Pinoy at the Ateneo, for the invocation.
Let us pray. God of mercy and compassion, draw us more closely to your own heart, consumed with love for your people. We are like sheep without a shepherd, scattered and divided by paid hirelings and charlatans. We are hungry and tired in this wilderness. We have seen the sacred profaned, human dignity taken, nameless lives stolen. How long, O Lord, how long? How long must we stay in this wilderness where the malicious and unscrupulous lord it over the weak and vulnerable? How long must your truth and justice be defiled? Forgive us for running away, for losing heart, for allowing our faith in you and in ourselves to grow faint. Look upon us again, as once you did with your own heart moved with compassion. At the sight of your flock, lost and hungry and without a shepherd, you fed us with the little that we had. You fed us, but not without first asking us to feed one another. Grant us a glimpse of the promise and power that you see in us. Seeing what you see in us, may we be brave again to defy those who would defile your justice. May we draw boldness from banding together as we do this morning to defend your truth. May we find courage to redeem what we have lost. You did warn us about paid hirelings and cowards who would only divide and scatter and deliver their flock to danger. Show us once more, as you have ever since, how we can become shepherds ourselves, shepherds after the heart of you, our good shepherd. Give us a glimpse of the promise and power that you see in us, and we shall not run away again and lose heart. We shall believe in you and be truthful to ourselves once more, trusting in you to move us. We know our efforts will never be in vain. We shall suffer this wilderness, and we shall go forth and lead. This we pray, this we profess in your name for your beloved people this day and for many more to come. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Maraming salamat, Father Jet. At ngayon, ilagay po natin ang ating kanang kamay sa kaliwang dibdib at awitin natin ang pambansang awit. More than a month ago, on September 1st, Aware launched the first volume of the ebook Salamat Pnoy. Aware, as you might know, is composed of a small group of women, which was founded in 1983 as a result of the assassination of Ninoy Aquino. Over the last 30 years, Aware has actively participated in the political life of our country and has this year decided to undertake the project of an ebook on Pinoy. Today's launch of Volume 2 was not in the original plan of Aware. When we were putting volume 1 together a few months ago, the response to the call for tributes, reminiscences, poems, letters, speeches delivered, and informal recollections was so overwhelming and was about to reach 300 pages of material. The editorial board then decided that they would consider producing another ebook. And that's how Volume 2 came about, which we are launching this afternoon. For today's launch, we'd like to announce to you that we are being live streamed on YouTube. And as we are now into the launch of this book, I'd like to introduce the members of the editorial. Pauline Sikam is our editor. Ali Figueroa, book designer. Rapa Lopa from the Ninoy and Cory Aquino Foundation. Ina Sorongon from the Ninoy and Cory Aquino Foundation. Nars Lim from Aware. Phyllis Sabaliero, also from Aware. And myself. I'd also now like to call on our editor of the book, Pauline Sikam, to tell us about what's to expect in Volume 2. Pauline?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. When Aware asked me and Ali Figueroa to help them produce this ebook, collating the tributes to President Noy after he passed on in June. Yeah, as Chacha said, there was just too much material for one volume. We saw right away that we would have to have 2 volumes. Volume 1, which came out in September, contains expressions of grief and condolences from far and wide, and a documentation of Pinoy's amazing achievements in his 6 years in office by commentators in media. The second volume is about memories of Pinoy in 3 parts, from his family, his friends and the public, and his young, idealistic, close-in staff in Malacanang. If the first volume recorded the widespread grief at Pinoy's passing, this second volume is a celebration of his life and work. While the pain of loss is still there, Volume 2 documents light moments with Noy and his siblings, nephews, kasambahay, friends in media, close and casual acquaintances, a fan or two, and his palace crew of speechwriters and gophers, who were also his party planners and friends in music. What emerges is an intimate portrait of a man who bore a burden few people from his generation had to carry, a burden he bore with dignity, although with a tinge of sadness, a dollop of humor, and lots of comfort from music, over what he had to miss having to take charge of his family and his country. Pinoy in this volume is refreshingly human, a thoughtful brother and a strict but doting uncle, a very considerate boss to his household staff, a challenging superior but with lots of lambing to his cabinet, an inspiring leader to his fan base, a trusting friend to a chosen few in media, that one we discovered. And as you will find in these essays by the palace crew, an exacting boss who, thankfully, would compensate his overworked staff with food, fun, and music, what one staffer called his love language. In addition to the essays, we sought contributions from several artists who enriched the book with their response. The caricature by Denko and Miel on the cover, a portrait in acrylic by Didi Lopa, a digital portrait by Alfredo Roses, and paintings of Ninoy's murder on the tarmac and sketches of Malacanang by Phyllis Sabaliero, who is also a member of Aware. We have also included the postage stamp honoring Pinoy issued by the Philippine Postal Service. There is much to learn about Noynoy Aquino, the real person, warts and all, but with lots of lambing in this volume. We hope you enjoy and are inspired reading it as much as we enjoyed and were inspired bringing it to you.
Thank you, Pauline. We are happy to share this book with you for free. And if you would like to access this book, please type bit.ly/. Salamat Pnoy to be able to read your own copy of Volume 2, Salamat Pnoy. Like the foreword of the book says, the public was not fully aware of what Pnoy accomplished because Pnoy was not one to crow about his accomplishments. Well, Volume 2, like Pauline mentioned, gives a closer and more intimate look at who he was as a brother, uncle, and a boss. Joining us this afternoon to introduce excerpts from Pinoy's Volume 2, we are happy to welcome is a lady who was perhaps the one who got to know the president best up close. Starting out her career in government service as the chief of staff of then Senator Aquino, she was drafted to be Pinoy's head of the presidential management staff when Senator Aquino got elected president of the Philippines. Heading PMS was a huge responsibility for one whose small frame belies the tenacity required for the job. But she did it, all 6 years of it, and is here with us this afternoon to help us remember Pinoy behind the scenes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present Julia Abad.
Thank you, Cheche. That was quite an introduction to live up to. Our first speaker this evening is one of Pinoy's nephews, one who was also his friend, kaasaran, and occasional companion at Bahay Pangarap. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miguel Avellada.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to share an excerpt from an interview I had in June. Pardon the language or the Taglish, as I had no idea at that time that this would ever be published. Tito Noy was never the type to really say, ang hirap nito or ang sakit nito. Yun nga yung sinasabi ng mga tao, wala siyang emosyon. But to understand this part of him, maybe one just has to look at the beginning of his life. And that maybe he was just really trained to be that way. Kasi when he was growing up, it was martial law. Hindi ka pwedeng magmukhang weak, lalo na in front of my lolo, who at that time was in jail. By showing weakness during their visits would not result in anything productive. Kaya siguro he had to keep his feelings or his the feeling of sadness to himself. So growing up into an adult, nadala niya yun. He wouldn't show any signs of pain, especially when he got sick. But when he got sick in 2019, makikita mo he would slowly lose weight and yung mobility or yung paggalaw niya may hirap na ng konti. Hindi na niya kailangan sabihin. We just saw that the dahan-dahan, it was becoming a little more difficult for him as the days passed. Aside from the physical pain, he was also one to keep emotional hardships to himself. Siguro at some instances, the family felt bad about some wrongful accusations or those who would not appreciate his work. But the funny thing was, the feeling bad was more evident in us than him. Never ko narinig sa kanya na ang sama ng loob ko dito, bakit ganito. Yun nga, he doesn't really show his emotion. Pero when I brought it up once, ang sinabi lang niya sa akin was, ang alam mo, Miguel, ang importante, at the end of the day, nakatulog ako na mahimbing sa gabi. I think nagawa ko yung dapat kong gawin, wag mo nang papansinin yan. And I think a few days after, he even called or messaged my mom to check on me, to ensure that I wasn't taking things too hard. So imagine that. I wasn't even the target of the negative propaganda or negative news, and even though he was the target, he still found some time to at least check on me and to check on how I was doing because he didn't want me getting sad or getting worried about him. Nakakaawa dahil kung sino pa ang dapat mas nabibigatan, siya pa yung sumasalo sa amin. Ganun talaga siya. That's how he was brought up and so that's exactly how he lived. As some others today will probably mention, he always stuck to rules and his beliefs. He was really by the book. Black or white siya, walang gray. Dinala niya talaga ito buong buhay niya. He never showed weakness or hardship, but I'm sure sometimes he would have felt better kung mas na-appreciate yung mga nagawa niya. But we never heard him say it. Till the end, he was the same. I believe my parents and I were the last people he saw outside his household staff when we came over for lunch on Father's Day, June 20. 4 days before he passed. After 2 hours of lunch, he excused himself and just said to us na pagod, pasensya na, pagod na ako, pahinga na muna ako. After because nga he had to sit up 2 hours and just really converse with us to make it worth our while siguro. So that was the last time we saw him, and till the end, that's what he showed. He really didn't give out emotions. If he felt there would nothing, it would, if he felt that there would nothing, it would not help anyone in any way. So thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. On a bit of a lighter note, we remember when before Miguel proposed to his then girlfriend and now wife, Steph, he came to the office to tell his Tito Noy about his plan. And even if Pinoy would jokingly complain na nako may nauna na naman, I remember that he was also quite keen to know and make sure that everything went accordingly. Our next speaker is someone who played a key role in supporting Pinoy as the Philippines played host to some key international gatherings during the president's term, including the APEC Summit, the World Economic Forum East Asia Summit, and a number of state visits by different global dignitaries, including Pope Francis, President Barack Obama, and the Emperor and Empress of Japan. Please welcome my good friend, former Social Secretary at the Office of the President, Susan Reyes.
Hi, Julia. Hi, Julia. His favorite stress reliever after each event was to ask us to join him in singing. And this has become something we all looked forward to as well, because this is where we saw him at his most relaxed. He didn't drink a drop of alcohol, but he knew that some of us enjoy our wine or whiskey or vodka and would tease us as the Alcoholics Anonymous gang. And he would toast us with his Coca-Cola. He totally enjoyed watching us get happy and sing our hearts out, even if we were out of tune. I still see the smile on his face while watching us. And by us, I mean palace staff, caterers, and entertainers dance and sing our hearts out. He was president, and yet when you text him, he always responded. One time, somebody sent him a text saying, "Thank you for the beautiful flowers you sent." He responded with not just a "you're welcome," but he had to add, "Hope you had a happy birthday," when it was a wreath that he was being thanked for. It is hilarious now, but at that time, it was embarrassing, almost mortifying. So after that incident, we had to add another layer to the process of our daily function and submit to him a daily list of wreaths sent to the dead and, if ever, flowers for the living. His critics call him many unsavory names, which I will not repeat here. But to me, he was a selfless and self-effacing leader who did his utmost best as president of this country. No frills, no wang-wang, no corruption, no drama, just hard work, marked with decency, elegance, truth, integrity, and honesty. At the onset of my appointment, I told myself, I will only do this for 2 to 3 years, but I stayed on with him throughout his term because he was such an inspiration to watch and work with. I feel very blessed to have known him well, and I will be forever grateful to him to have allowed me the opportunity to serve with him. It was truly an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. One of Susan's biggest points of stress during her stint in Malacanang was when the French president, Francois Hollande, came to visit, and Pinoy told her to make sure that the wine she would serve at the state dinner was up to standard. We like to tease her that people said that the wine was maasim because that was always sure to freak her out. The next speaker we will hear from is Dr. Rolly Solis, who was the cardiologist and personal physician of the late Senator Ninoy Aquino during his 3-year exile in the United States. Dr. Solis was on vacation in the Philippines in August of 1987 when Pinoy was shot during a coup attempt. He was then called on by the family to treat the former president. Let us listen to his story.
Greetings from Dallas, Texas, and thank you so much for inviting me to participate in the second volume of the Pinoy ebook. There had been multiple versions of the injuries sustained by President Noynoy Aquino after his attempted assassination in the early morning of August 28, 1987, when his convoy was ambushed and shot at by rebel soldiers while he was on his way home. As a personal witness to the events following the shooting, I hope my brief dissertation today will put to rest once and for all speculations about Noynoy's injury. My family and I were at the tail end of a vacation in Manila during the shooting. Upon urgent request from President Cory Aquino, I personally attended to Noynoy's care as a physician at the PSG hospital where he was temporarily confined. He sustained only one wound, located in the angle of his left lower jaw, just below the left ear. The wound was oblong, about the size of the tip of an index finger. It had irregular edges with clotted blood with no signs of active bleeding. There were also no signs of injury inside his mouth. X-rays of his head revealed 2 adjacent opaque fragments located at the level of the skin wound. The bigger fragment was flat with irregular edges about the size of the tip of the little finger. The smaller one, located at the 2 o'clock level of the bigger artifact, was approximately the size of the tip of a matchstick. The fragments did not penetrate beyond the inner bone layer. It is my personal opinion that these fragments were from ricocheted bullet artifacts, as a direct hit from a high-powered gun would have caused more injury and could have been fatal. With concurrence from Dr. Marilyn Cipriano, a surgical consultant at the FEU hospital, whose services I requested, we decided against surgical exploration. Close observation was elected. I monitored Noynoy for 2 days at his room at the Arlige Presidential Residence. He had no complications related to his injury, either acutely or for the rest of his life. The bullet fragments remain in place until his demise. Thank you so much for your attention.
I think after that first-hand but quite heavy account surrounding Pinoy's gunshot wound, we might all need a bit of a breather. So, as most of you know, Pinoy was a lover of music. It was what he turned to express what he felt at any given time. During our Malacanang days, he would often call on some of our homegrown talents to sing for and sometimes with him. Our next speaker or performer, who worked in the appointments office handling the president's day-to-day schedules, will sing a piece that we heard quite often, one of Pinoy's favorites, Please welcome Michelle Sakido Marshall.
I'm afraid to fly, and I don't know why. I'm jealous of the people who are not afraid to die. It's just that I recall back when I was small, someone promised that they'd catch me, but then they let me fall, and now I'm falling fast again. Why do I always take a fall when I fall in love? You think by now I've learned, play with fire, you get burned. But fire can be oh so warm. That's why I return, turn and walk away. That's what I should do. My head says go and find the door. My heart says I found you, and now I'm falling fast again. Why do I always take a fall when I fall in love? It always turns out the same. Loving someone, losing myself, only got me to blame. Help me, I'm falling. Catch me if you can. Maybe this time I'll have it all. Maybe I'll make it after all. Maybe this time I won't fall. Then I fall in love. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That song brings back a lot of happy memories of Pinoy. We've heard him play this many, many times to relax at the end of a long day. We've heard him sing it in many impromptu or planned karaoke sessions. And we've also heard it play in the background as he signed and reviewed piles of briefers and executive papers. I've mentioned this before, but one of the greatest gifts of working with Pinoy for nearly 10 years was the opportunity to see how much faith he placed in the young, and how the privilege of working with such a president allowed these young people to blossom and to flourish, even after we had all left Malacanang. The next section of the book will feature testimonials from many of these young staffers, personal stories, some bloopers, but most of all, stories that reflect personal growth from a time that changed all of us. First, we are going to hear from Charles Tuvilla, who was one of Pinoy's speechwriters. After hearing about Pinoy's passing, Charles wrote a letter to his children, Javier and Ada, to tell them about the lessons he learned from our former boss. Let's listen to Charles.
May isang foreign trip na laging tumatatak sa isip ko. Dito ko kasi nakita kung gaano kaseryoso sa sinumpaan niyang trabaho si 7-5. ASEAN Summit, di ko na maalala kung saang bansa. Bahagi ng tatalakayin ng maraming pinuno ay ang territorial dispute sa West Philippine Sea. Kapag ganitong pagpupulong, ang statements ng bawat pinuno ay naipavet na, naipabasa na at napagkasunduan na ng foreign affairs representatives ng iba't ibang dadalo. Kumbaga, scripted na. Ito ang sasabihin ng Pangulong ito at para wala masyadong gulo, ito naman ang sasabihin ng kabilang Pangulo. Napaka-safe. Hindi sang-ayon si 7.5 sa ganitong sistema. Ayaw niyang basahin ang mga inhandang statements, start from scratch. Gulantang ang DFA at ang mga patulog na sa ng delegasyon. Ang punto ni 7.5, may posisyon tayong gusto nating tindigan at hindi natin maipaparating ng malinaw ang posisyong ito kung tikong bibig tayo at magpapatangay na lang sa alon na ginagawa ng dambuhalang karatig bayan. Hindi siya naghanap ng gulo, walang sindakan na naganap. Higit sa lahat, hindi tayo umuwing bahag ng buntot. Malinaw ang mensahe niya at inihayag niya ito sa mundo. Ang Pilipinas ay para sa Pilipino. Pagkatapos ng foreign trip, na ang kinatatakutang arrival speech. Lahat ng nakuha sa biyahe kailangang isiksik sa talumpati na technically ay nasusulat lamang sa flight pabalik sa Pilipinas. Kapag naisulat mo na ang draft at ipinasa sa kanya, madalas ay mababasa na lamang niya ito kapag malapit ng lumapag sa aeroplano. Kapag may pinapadagdag pa siya, kulang na lang ay pumasok ka sa cockpit para sabihan ng piloto na i-reroute mo ang flight. Pero kapag nagsimula na niyang pasadahan ang unang pahina at ang pangalawa at pangatlong pahina hanggang sa last page na tatango-tango na siya, tapos minor edits na lang, para ka na rin nasa cloud na higa nga. Paglapag, imbes na si 7.5 ang unang lalabas sa aeroplano, ayon sa tradisyon, papasingitin ng PSG ang speechwriters group o ang SWG para tumakbo palabas, magpatintero sa likod ng mga sundalong nakataas ang mga espada para sa arrival honors at dumiretso sa teleprompter hawak ang final draft na nasa USB. Disyembre 2013 nang kailangan ko nang lumipad papuntang Estados Unidos para makasama kayo ni Nanay Pam. Ilang buwan bago nito, nakapagpaalam na ako sa kanya. Huling meeting na dinaluhan ko sa private office habang nag-iyosi kami sa sulok. Ayaw niyang nag-iyosi sa harap ng non-smokers at mga babae kaya siya mismo lumalayo. So lahat ng may bisyo, andun din lang sa malayong corner ng opisina niya. So habang nag-iyosi kami sa sulok, nagbibigay siya ng mga tips kung saan ang masasarap na kainan sa Texas, ang mga lugar na pwedeng puntahan, ang mga karanasan sa lungsod ng maoperahan ang ama niya dito sa Dallas. Siyempre, laging may kabig sa dulo si 7.5. Everything is bigger in Texas, Charles. Ingatan ng katawan. Napa-stomach in na lang ako sa hirit niya. Hindi na kami ulit nakapagkita ni 7.5 mula noon. Nang umuwi ako sa Pilipinas noong 2019, sumilip ako sa Times. Nagbabaka sakaling makapagbigay galang man lang. Masama raw ang pakiramdam niya kaya hindi na makababa. Pero naipabot pa niya ang isang librong may personal na mensahe. Nakasulat kay Charles, salamat sa lahat ng naitulong mo sa daang patuwid. Pero may PS, namayat ka na ba? Nakaisa pa talaga si Sir.
Thank you, Charles. Alam nyo, many think that traveling with the president is a glamorous affair, and I have to tell you that there's really nothing farther from the truth. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that photo that has been circulating of Pinoy having an in-flight discussion with some staffers and some cabinet secretaries. It was actually us getting scolded for missing out on crucial figures for an arrival statement following a visit to Japan. He had gone back to his seat after, and we were all standing up, panicking, revising the statement together when the plane encountered some turbulence. And he said to us, "Oh, naka-on na yung seatbelt sign. Bakit nakatayo pa kayo lahat dyan?" But all of us really figured it was probably better to get injured than have him deliver a half-baked, incorrect arrival statement. So siguro that was the only time we did not follow his instructions. Pinoy was an undeniably tough boss. From him, we learned to take pride in our work and to always give it our all. The next three speakers will share with us how their years in Malacanang have shaped who they are as professionals today. We will hear from Smile Indias, a former creative director at the Presidential Communications Development and Strategic Planning Office, now a faculty member at the Ateneo de Manila University. From Jen Lazo, a former Senate speechwriter and PCDSPO Chief of Staff, now a strategic communications professional based in Toronto. And Raf Ignacio, former close-in staff and economic policy assistant director, now a strategy consultant based in New York.
First time ko pong makita si Pinoy up close and personal a few days before his 2012 SONA. Doon sa meeting, binasa na nila yung draft speech tapos dinadaanan na rin yung slides. Tapos, memorable talaga sa akin yung araw na yun dahil first time ko rin siyang makita up close and personal na mainis. At I think malaking bahagi ng pagkainis niya noon ay dahil mali yung data na nakalagay sa slide. 5.32% yung nakalagay sa slide at 5.35 yung data na naaalala niya dahil sobrang sharp ng memory niya ay tama siya. Tapos, hindi ko alam kung anong tumatakbo sa isip ko at the time, no? So, nag-explain ako na nag-copy-paste lang naman ako. At I think nakadagdag pa yun sa pagkayamot niya dahil wala naman talagang ibang dapat gawin kundi itama yung mali nakalagay. Dahil wala talagang room for sloppiness dun sa trabaho. So sabi niya, no, in so many words, bakit ganito to parang gawa ng amateur? Tapos, totoo po yan. Kasi at 21, isa talaga akong tunay na amateur at the time. So, sa loob ng 5 taon na nakatrabaho ko siya, habang nanonood ako sa kung paano siya magpatakbo ng pamahalaan, habang nag-click ng PowerPoint niya or nag-play ng video niya pag may event siya, naramdaman ko talaga yung pagpapahalaga niya bilang pangulo sa good design. May mga events siya na siya mismo yung nagre-request na meron kasamang visuals yung sasabihin niya. Napakahalaga nito sa akin, no? Kasi lagi akong tinatanong nun, fine arts major ka, pero bakit ka sa gobyerno nagtatrabaho? So, pinangawakan ko talaga yung tiwala na binigay niya doon sa kaya kong iambag. So, in the instances where I question my place in this change space, lagi kong binabalikan na lumaki ako sa isang napakahusay na opisina na may appreciation para doon sa kaya kong gawin bilang isang designer. At ito rin yung lagi kong kinukwento ngayon sa mga estudyante ko as a full-time instructor sa information design program ng Ateneo. Mahalaga sa akin yung lakas ng loob na binigay sa akin noon ni Sir dahil na-realize ko talaga na may puwang para sa mga fine arts major na tulad ko kahit saan. Kung may puwang para sa akin noon sa administrasyon niya. So, malaking pagpapasalamat ko talaga yung grabing training at grabing trabaho na ginawa noon. Dahil ganong kind din ng rigor yung gusto kong ituro sa mga estudyante ko ngayon. So, yun. Salamat talaga, sir. Isang malaking karangalan ang makatrabaho kayo ng panahon na yun. Aralin ko po yung mga kanta ni Adele this week para sa Rocky Open session natin balang araw.
Hello. My name is Jen Lazo, and I joined Pinoy Senate team in 2009 as his youngest junior staffer and joined him in Malacanang and stayed on until 2015. His untimely passing last June brought many beautiful untold stories to light. How he was never one to boast of his achievements, but instead worked diligently and quietly. From my end, I was the one tasked to be on a 24-hour duty to provide weather or disaster reports, and he would always be up until wee hours in the morning, monitoring the situation, and was never too tired or too up there to give a thank you response. Ika nga, para sa bayan, pero walang tulugan. I, along with many young ones staffer during the Aquino administration, learned to also double and triple check everything, from data to every single sentence. And to always act with urgency and never settle for anything less than your best work, especially when people's livelihood and lives are at stake. But speaking of stake, on a very personal level, there are 2 things that he shared with me and with a lot of people, and these will never go away. Food and music. These were clearly his language of love. In 2010, I had my first scolding from him, and when he clearly saw that I was affected by it, he placed a cob of corn on my plate, as if to comfort or even apologize for a reaction that I so rightly deserved. Ako naman talaga yung nagkamali. But still, he did this, and he didn't have to, but he did. He always showed this love for music and company as well. I cannot count the number of times that I've been asked to sing on stage with a live band, or even during lull times in between media engagements, to sing a song that was probably stuck in his head, or he would ask me to play the piano whenever one was in sight. And so, whether it was Pinoy sharing his stash of chocolates, or sharing the microphone with colleagues, staffers, or friends on stage, he always allows the walls to come down. And in that moment, he is no longer the distinguished President Benigno S. Aquino III, but Noynoy Aquino, sharing a part of himself as an upright citizen, an inspiring, decent, and kind person, with his heart always in the right place. It is always in small moments that we learn that no one can ever be too big or too small to inspire and touch lives and be generous, decent, humble, and kind. With this, and because I knew him, learned from him, and we all collectively loved him, I know I've been changed for the better and for good. Salamat Pinoy, salamat sir. May you have the best and unlimited music and food in heaven. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to talk about what Sir and the experience of working with him means to me. Back in 2009, fresh out of school and thinking about what to do with my life, I saw Sir on TV declare his intention to run as the president. In his speech, he talked about this government employee who said, "Pwede na muling mangarap," after learning that Sir was going to run. That sentiment, "Pwede na muling mangarap," inspired so many others, including me. It filled me with hope and moved me to find a way to play a role in his campaign, which eventually led to my improbable journey as a presidential staffer. Together with the Senate staff, I was very fortunate to have a front row seat on how Sir gave so much of himself, no, all of himself, to fulfill the duties of his office. Talagang pigang-piga at walang itinala sa sarili. After he passed, I started writing about my experiences working with Sir as a way to cope with his sudden departure. I didn't expect that the stories I wrote about him would strike a chord in the hearts of so many people who express an outpouring of admiration, respect, and love for Sir. Siguro by now nabasa na ni Sir sa heaven yung mga tributes para sa kanya, and I bet he feels loved and appreciated. Sir left very big shoes to fill because he raised the standard of what it means to be the president. And while I'll always fall short of his example, he makes me want to be a better Filipino. Thank you for letting me share.
In the days that followed Pinoy's wake, as tributes from many young staffers flowed in, I remember saying to Rochelle Ahoro, my colleague at the President's private office, "Tignan mo, mahal na mahal pala si Sir ng mga pinapagalitan niya." And we really did. Because as President and as our boss, he really drove us to become the best version of our professional selves. Articles about Pinoy will frequently make mention of the bag, a portable filing cabinet that carried the President's essentials, including briefing kits for the events of the day, various maps of the Philippines, a calculator, a dog-eared highlighted copy of the 1987 Constitution, and other props. There were three men who alternated as close-in staff to Pinoy, and one of them, our final speaker for today, will share with us his reflections from the time he held the privilege of carrying the bag. Please welcome Cedric Forbes.
Hi, good evening. So I'm Cedric. I'm one of the staff of the aide, together with Raf and Attorney June. So when we staffed for him, we carried the bag. So and it's mentioned na no all the things that was there, but there are two things in that bag that are actually significant to me. First is the copy of the Constitution. For me, it was quite telling na the most powerful person in the land would have that law on hand as a constant companion. And he didn't only have that in that bag, he also has his own copy sa desk niya sa office. And then the other thing is yung bread and butter namin, the briefing kits, maps, graphs, charts that we prepare for him on a daily basis. And actually, in packaging this material, we learned, not just me, I suppose, but all of us, we learned how to be mindful of the smallest details, no, and how it contributes to the bigger picture. He likes to put things together, so even the corruption issues, he would say, na, if we can get rid of corruption, we can channel a lot of money to education. And every time I carried the bag, no, I always sat, stood, or walked behind him. Well, actually, it didn't matter, no, because I'm a bit short and he's quite tall. And every time he wanted to look for me, he was always turning his head around, trying to find me, even though I was literally just behind him. So his back has always been my view every time I staff for him. We were always alert and listening to his every word. And my hand is already inside the bag, grasping either a map of the West Philippine Sea, a calculator, graphs of tax collections, or the budget of education or for peace, all to help him make his case, in case he asked for it, to make his case to the people he was speaking with, be they from the civil society organization or from businesses, other world leaders, and even average citizens. He has that presentation to them to explain why he makes these decisions, to explain his policies. We had a mission. It's not just to serve the public, but to serve them well. And it is to make Filipinos' lives better. He always said na he wanted to leave behind, he wanted to leave people's lives better than when he got there. And working closely with him, he reminded us that public service actually isn't easy. It is a labor of love. There will be challenges, but we can overcome it. And many of us, even after his term, we continued serving the public, whether in government or civil society or even in the private sector. We still continued serving the public in our own way. So actually, sir, ang dami niyo pong naturo sa amin, ang daming training. Salamat po sa lahat ng yon. And of course, salamat rin po for the inspiration. Hindi namin ito kakalimutan. And yes, sir, mahal pa rin namin kayo. And if you've only seen all the people that came out, mahal pa rin nila kayo, sir. Thank you po.
Cedric was one of the youngest members of our Senate team. And so because of that, a number of us took to calling him baby. Pero si sir, because he's a bit more formal, hindi niya kaya yung baby. Prefer to refer to him as bunso. As in, baka naman hindi na lumaki si bunso sa bigat ng bag na yan. As we draw to a close this evening, we would like to share with you a musical number from Martin Rivera, who sent this recording from Las Vegas, where he is now currently performing a show.
Of the many great things that Pnoy did for us, on a personal note, to be chosen as one of the singers for the 2015 APEC meeting was a true honor. So Pnoy, maraming salamat for that great honor. Mula na makilala ka, buhay ko'y biglang nag-iba. Kay saya ng bawat sandali, kailan may hindi pagpapalit. Ikaw ang aking hiniling, sa habang buhay ay makapiling. Ngunit mahal, ikaw ang nasaan, aking inimithi ay ikaw lamang. Ikaw ang aking pangarap, ikaw ang sagot sa aking dasal. Puso ko ay inaalay, pagkat minamahal kitang tunay. Ikaw ang aking pag-ibig, ang nagbibigay kulay sa aking daigdig. Wala nang naisin pa, kung magpakailanman ay kasama ka. Ngunit mahal, ikaw ay nasaan, aking inimithi ay ikaw lamang. Ikaw lamang. Ikaw ang aking pangarap, ikaw ang sagot sa aking dasal. Puso ko ay inaalay, pagkat minamahal kitang tunay. Ikaw ang aking pag-ibig, ang nagbibigay kulay sa aking daigdig. Wala nang naisin pa, kung magpakailanman ay kasama ka. Ikaw ang pangarap, ikaw ang aking pangarap.
Thank you, Martin, for that beautiful song sent from Las Vegas, where he's now performing. And we'd also like to thank Julia Abad for hosting this wonderful section of tonight's launch, where we have heard the reminiscences and happy memories of his close-in staff. I'd now like to call on the president of the Ninoy and Cory Aquino Foundation to give the closing remarks. Rapa Lopa. Rapa?
Thank you, Cheche. Thank you again for inviting me here. Well, firstly, allow me to begin to thank once again the power women of AWARE for their undying love for Noy and the Aquino family. These are the real lady warriors of Philippine democracy. If you see the now and then pictures in the beginning of the book, you will see that they have all aged gracefully and beautifully. We are all blessed to have so many wonder women in this country. Let me also let me also take this opportunity to thank all those who contributed to this second volume of the ebook for Noy. To the friends of Noy who shared their fondest memories of Noy, thank you for giving all who will read this volume a glimpse of the humanity of Noy. Often when we pay tribute to our leaders, we only capture the big accomplishments he or she is able to do. By sharing Noy beyond his life of public service, I believe your stories will allow the readers of this volume to realize that Noy is pretty much like many of us. We have similar likes and dislikes, good and bad habits, hobbies and quirks. But similar as we may be with Noy, your stories of your encounters with him have also shown the resolve of an ordinary person to courageously become extraordinary when he chose to go out of himself and serve others. To the third generation, Aquinos, my nephews and nieces, and the younger generation who have had the privilege of interacting and working with Noy, you all know how much he believed in your generation. It was very obvious that much of his work was all about making our country a better place for the future generations to come. And he knew that the best way to shape such a future is to work closely with the future leaders who will continue the unfinished work. I am sure that many of you who were very young then and not so young now, di ba Julia, are already living testimonies and living testaments of Noy's dream as you take on leadership roles in various fields of work. To my cousins, Ate Bolsi, Pinky, Biel, and Chris, what more can I say? If there are a million ways to say and express my gratitude to all of you, you know that I will exhaust all means to do whatever it takes. The journey you embraced with your dad, mom, and Noy was certainly not one that you deliberately planned. It sought you in the same way it did the three of them. You could have chosen to turn your back on this invitation, but you did not. While Noy might be on the upper hand on the question of who is the favorite among you, I am sure that all three of them up there agree that the four witches, in reality, are the four angels of their lives. As a final note, let me share one key takeaway. I have one key takeaway after reading several pieces in both volumes. If there is one common message that keeps on coming back to me each time we celebrate the life of Uncle Ninoy, Auntie Cory, and today Noy, it's often the slogan that we share whenever we do our Aquino leadership seminars in the Ninoy and Cory Aquino Foundation. And it goes, the call to leadership is the call to love. Authentic servant leadership is really a thankless calling because at the core, the servant leader does not really expect to be thanked. Noy inherited this calling from his parents who both answered the call. And it is through this, it is through their choices and actions that inspire all of us that we all now inherit the same call to serve. This event comes at a very opportune time when once again we are all called to regain our democracy and our country's soul from those who have successfully and continue to undermine and destroy it. Their propaganda of lies and deception have revised the truth of our country's dark past and have covered up on more wrongdoings of the present. And because of this, many of our people are giving up on democracy and worse, have grown bitter and resentful towards each other. The division among our people have never been so uncompromising that we are no longer able to listen to each other to enable us to find what could unite us instead of what disconnects us. We have become very angry and vicious towards each other. The question then is, how do we heal as a country and once and for all really change for the better the lives of most of our people who remain poor, marginalized, and vulnerable? In a recent declaration speech in her bid for the presidency, Vice President Leni Robredo said, "Ina akong nakikita ang pagdurusa ng minamahal kong bansa. Naniniwala ako, ang pag-ibig na susukat hindi lang sa pagtitiis, kundi sa kahandaang lumaban kahit gaano kahirap para matapos na ang pagtitiis. Ang nagmamahal, kailangan ipaglaban ang minamahal." I think many of you here today agree with me that she has clearly articulated the call of the times, not only for her, but for all of us. If Uncle Ninoy said, the Filipino is worth dying for, Auntie Cory said, the Filipino is worth living for, and Noy said, the Filipino is worth fighting for, I believe VP Leni reminds us that the Filipino is worth loving more. Again, thank you so much for joining all of us today, and may we all answer in our own humble ways the call to lead and the call to love.
Thank you, Rapa, for that beautiful and touching closing remarks. That brings our program of remembrances to a close. As we heard from those who shared this evening, We are left with images of karaoke sessions to distress, a lesson on how to find out if September has 31 or 30 days, and the scramble to finish the president's arrival statement before the plane landed, and that famous leather bag that served as a filing cabinet that traveled with him. But the image that makes a mark most of all is that of Pinoy's habit of keeping a copy of the Philippine Constitution at hand to remind him of his sworn duty to serve the country well. And serve the country well, he did. Salamat, Pinoy, sa serbisyo mo sa ating bayan. As you know, the ebook is now available for free at bit.ly/Salamat Pnoy. On behalf of AWARE, I'd like to thank Rapa Lopa of the Nino and Cory Aquino Foundation, Julia Abad for co-hosting this evening's launch, Pauline Sikam, our editor, Ali Figueroa, our book designer, and everyone who has made Salamat Pnoy Volume 2 possible. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat.